I was tying the last purple balloon to the snack table when I saw my daughter, Lily, scan the rink again. She'd been doing it all afternoon, eyes darting to the door every time it opened. Her 10th birthday. She was wearing the sparkly blue jacket she picked out a month ago, the one she'd been saving just for today. "Any sign of Grandma yet?" she asked, skating up to me. I smiled like nothing was wrong. "Not yet, kiddo. They'll be here soon." But my phone buzzed. One new text from Mom. "Sorry, we couldn't make it. Busy day." That was it. No call. No explanation. No happy birthday for her granddaughter. No mention of a gift. Just that lazy little line like it was nothing. My jaw tightened. 10 years old. Double digits. She'd been talking for weeks about showing her grandparents the tricks she'd learned. And Chris, my brother, was supposed to come too. He was her cool uncle in her eyes, even if I knew better. I shoved the phone back in my pocket before Lily could see. "You having fun?" I asked, pushing the cake closer to the edge of the table so the kids could see it. "Yeah." She grinned, already half-turned to chase her friend back onto the ring. The music was loud, kids laughing, the smell of popcorn in the air, all of it clashing against that familiar, bitter hit in my chest. I'd been here before, too many times. The forgotten events, the half-baked excuses, the feeling like my family couldn't even bother to show up when it mattered. But something was different this time. I walked to the rental counter, handed the guy 2 more tickets for skates, and waved over a couple of Lily's friends who'd been watching from the benches. "Come on. Get out there," I told them. The party wasn't going to fall apart just because my family couldn't be bothered. I lit the candles myself, led the singing, cut the cake, and made sure Lily's smile stayed wide. Every laugh she gave, every squeal when she almost fell, I locked it in my head. I wasn't letting her see my disappointment. Not today. But under that fake smile, something in me snapped into place. Not the usual resignation, not the quiet maybe next time. No. This was different. By the time the kids were tearing into the gift bags and the rink lights dimmed for the last song, I knew I was done letting them slide. I gathered the plates, tossed them in the trash, and zipped up Lily's jacket. She wrapped her arms around my waist. "Best birthday ever, Dad," she said. "Glad to hear it," I told her, and meant it. But as we stepped out into the parking lot, I had already made up my mind. Next time they let us down, there'd be a price. 2 days later, I was making coffee before work when my phone buzzed with a bank alert. I almost ignored it, thinking it was just another low balance notice for the savings account I was moving money into. But the subject line made me stop cold. "Transaction alert. $8,450. VIP wine-tasting yacht cruise. 4 tickets." I didn't even need to read the rest. The account number matched the old shared emergency business account my parents had convinced me to open years ago, back when I was still dumb enough to think emergency meant hospital bills, not luxury vacations. And I knew exactly whose fingerprints were on it. Chris's fiancée had been talking nonstop on Facebook about some exclusive vineyard experience out on the coast. She posted about it so much I could practically smell the overpriced Merlot through the screen. This cruise had her name all over it, which meant Chris, and if Chris was in, my parents were too. I set my coffee down and called the bank right there at the kitchen counter. "Yeah, that charge? Not authorized. Reverse it." Immediately, the rep asked for details, and I gave them, keeping my voice level but clipped. "This account is for emergency business expenses, not private parties, not yacht cruises, not anything like this. Reverse it and freeze the account today." "Yes, sir. We can file a dispute." "Don't file it. Do it. And lock this account down. No withdrawals, no transfers, no pending payments. I'm the only one with permission to touch it." It took about 10 minutes, a few security questions, and the promise of a confirmation email. But when I hung up, I felt that same snap in my chest I'd felt at Lily's party, sharper this time. I opened our family group text. No explanations, no back and forth. No "how could you?" Just one line. "Attorney will contact you." I hit send. The first call came less than a minute later. "Chris." I ignored it. He tried again, then again. By the 4th attempt, I switched my phone to silent. That's when Mom started. Voicemail after voicemail. "Evan, honey, we need to talk before you do something you regret." Click. "I don't know why you're being so drastic. We can work this out as a family." Click. "You don't understand. This was important." Click. I didn't delete them. Not yet. I wanted the whole chain in case Mark, my attorney, needed proof of how fast they came crawling when the money pipeline shut off. By the time I got to work, the missed calls were in double digits. Chris had resorted to texts now. "Answer the phone. Stop acting like a child." I didn't answer. I didn't defend myself. I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and let them burn up their minutes and battery. If they wanted to talk, they could do it through a lawyer. I kept my phone face down on the desk, but every few minutes it lit up again. Chris, Mom, Dad, cycling through calls and texts like their lives depended on it. Thing is, I'd seen this movie before. My parents always had steady jobs when I was growing up. Dad was a project manager for a construction firm. Mom worked in HR at a medical supply company. We weren't rich, but we had more than enough. At least, we should have. The problem was, they spent like the bills would never come due. New furniture every other year, a constant rotation of leased cars, dinners out 3 nights a week. When I was 16, I had a savings account from mowing lawns and working at the grocery store. 2 summers of sweating in 100-degree heat, and I had about $1,400. One day I came home, logged in to check it, and the balance was almost gone. Your father's bonus got delayed. Mom said over dinner, like it was nothing. We just needed to cover the electric and the water bill. We'll pay you back. They never did. By the time I was 20, it had become a pattern. Car broke down. Evan will help. Credit card maxed before Christmas. Evan will help. My help covered everything from Dad's emergency root canal to a week in Orlando because Mom said the family deserved a getaway. Every time I brought it up, the guilt trip rolled in like clockwork. Family takes care of each other, Dad would say, shaking his head like I was being selfish. You wouldn't even be where you are without us, Mom would add. And for years, I swallowed it. I told myself it was just money, and family mattered more. The shared emergency business account was supposed to be different. We opened it about 6 years ago when Dad claimed he might need to help his brother keep a landscaping company afloat. He said, "It'll only be used if something urgent comes up, and you'll have control too." I believed him. Idiot. It didn't take long before urgent meant a dinner at a steakhouse for 12 people, or tickets to some can't-miss music festival Chris wanted to go to. Every statement I looked at told the same story, not 1 cent spent on anything that even came close to an actual emergency. I confronted them more than once. This isn't what the account's for, I told Dad after a $3,000 charge for spa weekend getaway popped up. You're overreacting, he said, not even looking up from the TV. You make more than enough to cover it. Don't be petty. Petty? It's not your money. I shot back. It's family money, he corrected. Like that ended the discussion. That was the way it always went. They'd twist it until I was the ungrateful one, until I caved just to keep the peace. But the last few days had changed something. Standing at that skating rink, watching Lily glance at the door over and over, waiting for them, I'd felt that old sting, the one I'd been carrying since I was a kid. Only this time it didn't fade after a few hours. And when I saw that yacht charge hit my account, it all lined up. The missed birthday, the careless text, the constant draining of my pocket to feed their habits. They'd taken from me for years, but this was the first time they'd taken something from her. The excitement of having her grandparents there, the memory she deserved. No amount of speeches about family taking care of each other was going to erase that. I turned my phone over, saw another missed call from Chris, and let it go to voicemail without a second thought. This wasn't going to be another one of those times where I backed down. This was the breaking point. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee that night when my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call, just a text from Chris. We're outside. It's pouring. Let us in. I set the phone down without replying. The rain had been hammering the roof for an hour, steady and hard. A minute later, the pounding started. Not rain, but fists on the front door. I didn't move. Took another sip. The knocking got louder, mixed with voices yelling my name. 5 minutes passed before I finally walked to the door and swung it open. There they were, Chris, Mom, Dad, all 3 of them standing on my porch, drenched from head to toe. Water dripped from their hair. Their jackets clung to them like plastic wrap, and they smelled like wet pavement. Chris stepped forward first. You froze the account. You need to undo that right now. I leaned against the doorframe. No, I don't. Dad's voice was already sharp. That charge was for a networking event with potential clients. You had no right. I cut him off. Clients. You haven't worked a real job in 4 years. Mom hasn't worked since before that. And Chris, I looked at him. You don't even own a business. Chris's jaw tightened. You don't know everything about what I do. I know enough to see it sure as hell isn't networking on a yacht. Mom took a step forward, shivering. It was important, Evan. Opportunities like that don't come around every day. Neither does my daughter's 10th birthday, I said. Her eyes dropped for a second before she straightened up again. This isn't about that, Dad snapped. This is about you overstepping and treating family like thieves. I didn't raise my voice. You are thieves. You've been taking from me for years and calling it family duty. The account is closed. For good. Chris shook his head like I was the unreasonable one. You can't just cut us off like that. I can. And I just did. The rain poured harder, smacking the porch roof so loud we had to talk over it. Mom glanced back at their car parked at the curb, like she was calculating whether to run for it. Dad took another step closer, his shoes squelching. You're going to regret this. We needed that trip. No, I said, steady. You wanted that trip. There's a difference. For a few seconds, no one spoke, just the sound of the rain and the water dripping off their jackets onto my floor. Then I stepped back and put my hand on the edge of the door. We're done here. Go home. Chris opened his mouth like he was going to push it further, but I didn't give him the chance. I closed the door, slow but firm, and turned the deadbolt. Their muffled voices kept going for another minute, but I didn't listen. The account was closed, and so was the free ride. The pounding started up again before I'd even made it halfway back to the kitchen. Evan, Chris's voice cut through the rain. We're family. You're seriously leaving us in the rain? I walked back and cracked the door just enough to see him standing there, water dripping off his nose. Yes, I said. Mom stepped in, her tone turning syrupy. You wouldn't even be where you are without us. We sacrificed so much for you. I kept my hand on the door, and I've been paying that debt my entire adult life. The bank is closed. Her face pinched like I'd slapped her. That's not how family works. That's exactly how this family's worked. You take, I cover. Not anymore. Dad leaned forward, rainwater running down the sides of his face. You keep this up, you're going to destroy this family. You really want that on your conscience? I didn't blink. That's the point. The silence that followed was thick. Even the rain seemed quieter for a second. Chris's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mom glanced at Dad like she was waiting for him to say more, but he just stood there, breathing hard, water pooling at his feet. I pushed the door closed another inch. Go home. You're making a mistake, Dad said. No, I said, locking eyes with him one last time. I'm fixing one. And then I shut the door in their faces. This time I turned the deadbolt and the chain. Through the wood, I heard them talking, sharp, clipped voices I couldn't make out. Then footsteps down the porch steps, doors slamming, and the sound of their car starting. I stood there for a moment, my hand still on the lock, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Not relief, not guilt, just the solid, clean knowledge that I'd drawn a line and held it. I went back to the kitchen, poured the rest of my coffee into the sink, and let the sound of the rain fill the silence. By the next morning, the family group chat was a dumpster fire. Chris had kicked it off with, "You all need to know what Evan did." From there, the floodgates opened. Aunt Linda, he left them standing in the rain like dogs. Cousin Beth, wow, that's cold. Uncle Mike, maybe he had a reason. We don't know the full story. Second cousin Tyler, family should be above money. Always. It went back and forth all day. About half were in my corner, the other half acting like I'd burned the family Bible in the front yard. I didn't type a single word. Around lunch, my cousin Rachel called. "Do you know Mom's telling everyone you abandoned them in the rain after they drove an hour to see you?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair. Sounds about right. Are you going to set the record straight? Nope. She paused. Why not? Because anyone who actually knows me doesn't need convincing. And the rest? Let them think what they want. She sighed. All right, just be ready. They're spinning it fast. I thanked her and hung up. That night, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. "Evan, it's Ray. Call me." Uncle Ray was Dad's younger brother, the black sheep of the family. I hadn't talked to him in almost a decade, not since he moved to Montana after a screaming match with my parents over money. Curiosity won. I called him back. He answered on the first ring. "So, they finally did it to you too." I almost laughed. "Took you long enough to check in. I knew it would happen eventually. Your dad's been using family obligation as a personal ATM since the 80s. Yeah, well, the ATM's closed now. Good. Keep it that way. But be ready. They'll twist it, make it sound like you've turned your back on family. Maybe even start claiming you owe them for something from years ago. It's their playbook. I know. I've lived it." Ray's voice dropped a notch. "They tried to do it with me over a business loan. I refused. And suddenly, I was the selfish one who didn't care about my own blood. Don't take the bait. Not planning to. You've got more to lose if you give in now. They'll smell weakness and be right back at your door." We talked for another 10 minutes. He didn't offer sympathy, just strategy. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't the only one who'd stopped playing their game. When we hung up, I scrolled through the family chat again, still buzzing with accusations and counterarguments. I closed the app without reading the rest. Let them talk. I had better things to do. About a week later, I came home from work and found a thick envelope wedged in my mailbox. My name was written in Mom's looping cursive, the kind she reserved for birthday cards and Christmas letters. Inside were 3 pages of lined paper, every inch filled with blue ink. I didn't even have to read the first paragraph to know where it was going. The opening line was, "We're heartbroken over how you've treated your family." It was all there. The guilt trips, the rewrites of history, paragraphs about how they'd sacrificed their own dreams for me, how they never expected me to turn so cold, how the cruise had been for the greater good of the family. By the second page, they'd moved on to demands. Reinstate the account immediately, apologize to Chris and his fiancée, repair the damage I'd caused. By the third page, it was a mix of pleading and threats that if I didn't fix this soon, relationships could be permanently harmed. I didn't bother drafting a reply. I slid the whole packet into a new envelope and sent it to Mark, my attorney. He called me the next morning. I've read it twice, he said. They have no legal standing. None. In fact, if you wanted to push back, you could make a case for damages, especially if you've got documentation of all the past withdrawals. That's good to know, I said, though I wasn't interested in suing my parents. Cutting them off was enough. Just keep every letter, voicemail, and text. If they escalate, we'll be ready. I thanked him and hung up. That afternoon, a text from Chris popped up. You've ruined my reputation. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before locking my phone. No answer. The silence felt better than any comeback I could have sent. Over the next few days, I started noticing something strange. The absence of constant tension. No surprise withdrawals hitting my account. No last-minute emergency requests. My phone still buzzed with their numbers sometimes. But without the money drain, it all felt lighter. I checked my accounts one night and realized I actually had more left over at the end of the week than I was used to. Not much, but enough to notice. I took Lily out for ice cream that Friday. We sat in the booth by the window, watching traffic go by. She told me about a science project she was working on and asked if we could go hiking that weekend. Sure, I said. Pick the trail. That Saturday, we packed sandwiches and drove out to the state park. No calls, no texts, just the sound of our boots on the dirt and Lily pointing out squirrels like each one was a rare animal. It hit me halfway through the hike. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't waiting for the next blow-up. I was just there, walking with my kid. By Sunday night, I realized I'd spent an entire weekend without a single ounce of stress from them. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about it. About 2 months later, I was at the home improvement store picking up paint and a couple of new cabinet handles. I turned down the lighting aisle, pushing my cart, and there they were. Mom, halfway through comparing 2 ceiling fans, froze when she saw me. Dad glanced up, muttered something I couldn't catch, and immediately started walking toward the opposite end of the aisle. Mom pasted on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Evan, hi. I stopped for half a second, then kept pushing my cart. Her voice followed me. We haven't heard from you in a while. I didn't slow down, didn't turn my head, just kept moving toward the registers. There was no anger, no rush of adrenaline, just a flat calm. The kind you get when you finally realize you don't have to show up to every fight you're invited to. By the time I was loading the paint cans into my truck, I felt lighter than when I'd walked in. Silence, I realized, was better than any speech I could have given them. It was cleaner, more final, and for once, I didn't need them to understand why. After that run-in at the store, life started to settle into something I hadn't felt in years, steady. Weekends were ours now. Lily and I hiked almost every Saturday, trying new trails and keeping score on who could spot the most wildlife. Sunday nights turned into cooking nights. She'd pick a recipe, we'd make a mess in the kitchen, and then eat at the counter while laughing at how bad the smoke alarm scared us that one time. Without the constant drain from the account, I was actually saving money. Not huge amounts, but enough to start a trip jar for a summer vacation. I fixed the squeaky hinge on the back door, repainted the living room, even replaced the old shower head that had been limping along for years. It was small stuff, but it felt like progress. My money and my time going toward my own life, not propping up theirs. Then one Tuesday afternoon, I got a voicemail from Mom. Evan, it's your mother. I thought you should know. Your father's sick. We don't know how bad yet. Please call me. For a split second, I almost hit redial, but something in her voice felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script she'd used before. I called Uncle Ray instead. You heard anything about Dad being sick? He snorted. Yeah, I heard he's been sick at the golf course twice this week. They're fishing, Evan. Don't bite. That was all I needed. I hung up, went back to what I was doing, and later that night, deleted the voicemail without a second thought. That was the thing I'd started to learn. The less I reacted, the less power their bait had. I didn't need to defend myself, didn't need to argue, didn't need to keep receipts for the next fight. Peace had become the default instead of the exception. And it wasn't because they'd changed. It was because I'd finally stopped letting them in. Boundaries weren't walls to keep people out. They were gates I got to control. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to lock them. One night after dinner, Lily was stacking plates in the sink when she asked, Dad, how come Grandma and Grandpa don't come over anymore? I dried my hands on a towel. Sometimes, even with family, you have to protect yourself from people who hurt you. And the best way to do that is to spend less time with them, or no time at all. She thought about that for a second. Like when I stopped playing with Trevor because he kept taking my toys. Exactly like that, I said. It doesn't mean you don't care about them. It just means you care about yourself enough to stop letting them do it. She nodded like it made perfect sense, then went back to rinsing dishes. I stood there for a moment, watching her hum to herself. That was the real payoff. Not the money I'd kept, not the peace in my house, but showing her by example that you don't have to let people, even family, keep crossing your lines. The cycle stopped here. If they ever came back, whether in sunshine or pouring rain, they'd find the same locked door and a man who wasn't opening it again.